Page 90. Grab your Manischewitz or whatever you're using to make Kiddush. Sorry we're a little late here. Wanted to do that Misha Berach prayer. I know no one, I can tell kind of on the chat, a few people dropped off, but I appreciate people hanging around. Just a little bit of extra show this week. Get back on track next week. And don't forget, next Saturday night, Pesach, Passover. The 5,700 and running of them. So this week I wanted to tell you the story. This week we start a new book of the Torah, Vayikra. Not super heavy on story, lots of laws, and it starts off with all these laws about the korbanot, the offerings, the sacrifices. Now that the Mishkan is built, they need to know how to offer stuff and what to offer animal sacrifices for, and the Kohanim need to know their roles and all this kind of stuff. It's not the most fascinating from a story, but it gets me thinking every time we get to it every year about the evolution of prayer. Right? Because as Rabbi Mas tries to mention on most Shabbat mornings, we say sometimes here too, the Amidah, the standing prayer, replaced the sacrifices. It's been 2,000 years since the temple, the second temple was destroyed. This is post-temple Judaism, right? And prayer has evolved. But the origins of prayer, the whole idea behind prayer, the getting close to God. Remember, korban contains the word, Rabbi Green loved this teaching, contains the word karov, which means close. Because the whole idea behind whether you're reading the offerings in the Torah from thousands of years ago, which we'll read tomorrow morning, or whether you're talking about prayer this year that we just had right now with the silent Amidah, the whole idea, we said private audience with God. You want to get closer to God. That's the whole idea behind offerings, sacrifice, prayer, all the way through. It's a thing in common. And so this week I had a conversation with someone who I hadn't spoken to since Yontif, and we were talking, and she started telling me about her experience with her husband for the high holidays this year virtually. And she told me that her husband recreated shul. He stood there in his talis and yarmulke. I'm using her words. And he followed in every page. And when I said stand, he stood. When I said sit, he sat down. And he did it exactly. He faced east the whole time, and he did it exactly as he would have if he were standing here. And she did the complete opposite. She said that wasn't for her. She wasn't going to get into it. She really wanted it to be on her terms. She sat in her rocking chair the whole time, had a blanket around, and she said they both loved it. And I thought, first of all, this is incredible that we can reach people with what we do in such vastly different ways to create a meaningful experience. But then it reminded me that whether it's the offerings we read about in the Torah tomorrow, whether it's when we talk about our prayers in synagogue, there is an individual element. The offerings are prescribed. There are rules. You do it this way. The Kohen does this. You burn this part. But the language is very individual and very open. We talk about the person offering a sacrifice they refer to as not ish or isha, but nefesh. Nefesh, which we know we use now as a soul, but that's the word, ki nefesh. When a person makes a sin and wants to offer, that's how it works. They use the word nefesh. It's a soul thing. It's no one can really tell you how to pray. So that's the whole idea, standing or not standing when you're following along. I just tell you what I'm familiar with, the rituals, the routines, which are there in case someone doesn't know what to do and wants something to do. But if you know what you want to do, if you know how you want to make your prayer experience meaningful, and for you that means sitting in the rocking chair, putting a blanket up over your head, and getting lost in the sounds of it and the music and not how it looks, you think I'm going to tell you that's wrong? Nope. That sounds pretty right to me. But so does the guy recreating shul in his living room, because for him that was a meaningful experience too. As long as you have nefesh, standing or not standing, doesn't really matter. But I invite you to rise for Kiddush, page 90. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu mitzvotav. V'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'avav ratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron Lamaasev Reshit, Ki Hu Yom Techila Lemikrae Kodesh, Zecher Litziad Mitzrayim, Kivanu Vacharta Veotanu Kidashta Mikol Amim. V'Shabbat Kodesh Ba'av Ratzonin Chaltanu, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. L'chaim tovim u'shalom. Ooh, I think we're getting... Sometimes they surprise me if they pull out the seasonal flavors, seasonal bottles. Oh, that's very kind of you, Carolyn. Thank you so much. We'll conclude with Aleinu and the Mourner's Kaddish. The Aleinu is on page 118. I want to say thank you. Sorry again that we went a little long, but it was great spending this last hour plus with you, bringing in Shabbat together. Thank you for inviting me into your homes, for choosing to spend this last part of your Friday afternoon into Friday evening with me into the beginning of Shabbat. It's an honor. Tomorrow morning service is at 10. We have a bar mitzvah in-house. He had his bar mitzvah preview back in November. His bar mitzvah was cut off just a week before was the lockdown, and so he did his haftarah on Zoom, Nathan Strauss did, and now tomorrow he will be receiving his talit. He'll get an aliyah to the Torah. He will be sharing his haftarah with us again and reading from Torah from two different scrolls, from his original parsha, his original maftir, and his new maftir for the new date, as well as sharing a Dvar Torah about his experience. So we cannot wait for that tomorrow, 10 o'clock, as part of our Shabbat morning service. Show up and join Nathan's family and friends in creating a virtual atmosphere that will make it a very special and memorable morning for him and his parents and his younger brother, his grandparents, and everybody connected to him. Tomorrow's Mincha, we will be at 6 o'clock with Leslie Emery. And Sunday services are 9 a.m. for Shachrit, 6 o'clock p.m. for Mincha Mariv. 118 is the page. Aleinu is the prayer. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu gegoyei aratzot, velo samanu gemishbechot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 120. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Let's stand together, if you are comfortable, if you're willing and able, on page 124 and conclude our service with the Mourner's Kaddish. The early part of our service, we remember the Yortzites on the 6th of Nisan. In the middle of the service, we had a Kaddish where we remember the Yortzites for Shabbat this week, the 7th of Nisan. We've remembered people we've lost in this past week. We think of them all now, but we can all stand together in Minhag HaMakom, a custom here from Shered Zedek from the last few years. There are many people, never mind in the global community, even in our local community, who have passed on and have no one to say Kaddish for them. So we've been using the last Kaddish of our service as an optional communal Kaddish. I invite you